Hi, this is Dr. Toby, your host on Health and Wellness. Don't touch that dial. We have a special guest. Her name is Miss Joyce Johnson. She's a nurse practitioner. She's a mother. She's a minister of the gospel. And she's been practicing nursing for going up to 30 years now. But she has a unique story she's going to share. She's going to share about her family, her life. She just recently went from being a nurse practitioner to moving on to other things. But I wanted to take a little look into Miss Johnson's life and see how your life can also be encouraged and motivated and inspired through her life story. She went to some of the best schools in the country, from South Carolina to, I believe, Louisiana, and some other schools all around, studied up to master's in nursing, became a clinical nurse practitioner, worked with the Veterans Affairs, and now is on our show, Health and Wellness with Dr. Toby. What a pleasure, what a delight to have Ms. Joyce Johnson on the show with us. Thank you so much. You're welcome, ma'am. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're bringing you all the way from Mississippi, Madison, to share with my television audience your life story. Without divulging your age, just tell us a little bit about where you were born and where you were raised and how you got to where you are today. A lot of young girls are watching and they want to see a role model, and they don't see a lot. They don't see a lot of, you know, people they can look up to. I think you're one of those that young girls in our community can look up to. So just give us a little background. Were you born in a regular half family? Were you born in a church family? Were you born in a dysfunctional, what people call dysfunctional family? Because I think your story will inspire a lot of people.
Well, I am from South Carolina.
Okay.
I'm from a single parent family. My dad died when I was 2 years old,
Oh,
so I never knew him. But my mom was a woman of strong beliefs. I'm from a very close-knit family, the extended family. She worked hard to raise us after my dad died, but she had the support of the community. It takes a village to raise a family, and my mother was supported that way. I've always felt loved. I've never felt that I missed anything growing up, although my dad was not there. She worked 2 jobs in order to support my brothers and I.
How many siblings did you have?
I have 5 brothers
Oh, wow.
and 1 sister. One of my brothers died in 2017. And they are in South Carolina, some are in Maryland. One's in Maryland. But we were all reared by a strong mom who had ethics and wanted us all to do things. She sent us to church, which is my foundation. I knew at an early age that I wanted to do something with myself, that my mom worked hard and I did not want to be a burden on her. So I knew when I graduated from high school that I'd be doing something. It was my call. I wanted to make sure I made her proud, but that I did not want to be a burden on her, that she did not have to work to support me anymore once I graduated. And so I went to the University of South Carolina.
Okay.
My first thought was I wanted to go into accounting. That was not for me. I'm a people person and ended up in nursing,
Okay.
which has been great.
Was that the Medical University of South Carolina?
No, that was the University of South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina.
Columbia, okay.
Yes.
That's the capital, right?
Yes.
Of the state, right? Okay. Awesome.
Yes. So that's how I got started. I just had a drive and an initiative. And I decided nursing. I've worked in nursing with my baccalaureate degree for about 3 years. I got married right before I got out of college. I did not intend to do that. We had gotten married right before I graduated. Got married in February, my husband and I graduated in May. Worked for 3 years as a registered nurse and made a decision. My husband said, Joyce, well, what do you want to do? Either we can have children or you can go back to school. I chose to go back to school.
Oh, wow.
I knew that I wanted to have all of that out of my way as much as possible, and that's when I decided to go back to school, and I became a family nurse practitioner.
So that was a master's at the same school?
At the same school.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I saw there was times you taught at, was it Hammond, Louisiana?
Yes, I've taught in various places.
Okay.
I became a nurse educator more so than using my role as a nurse practitioner. And I would say I worked part-time as a nurse practitioner, full-time as an educator.
Oh, wow.
So I worked at various facilities there in South Carolina educational institutions. I worked in the associate degree nursing program in South Carolina Midlands Tech. I worked at the University of South Carolina as a professor. I worked at the University of South Carolina State there in
Okay.
Orangeburg, South Carolina. So done, and then we moved here to Mississippi, and I worked at the Medical University. We moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana,
Okay.
and there I worked at the hospital there, and I want to tell you the name of it, but I worked there in Louisiana for a
Okay.
short time in OB. So I've done a lot of things. I worked family planning as part-time as a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
So I've done a lot of things. I worked in the criminal justice system, juvenile justice
I
system,
saw that.
as a nurse practitioner. So I've
Wow.
very diverse areas that I've worked in, and I've enjoyed it. It has been challenging, but very rewarding.
So just before we go into your personal family and all that, a lot of young girls and boys want to go into nursing, and they feel there's so much. It's a huge mountain to climb. A lot of people want to go in now because of the financial remuneration. Some people want to go in. I don't know if they have the heart for it, but what would you say to that young boy or girl who's in 12th grade and who wants to become a nurse, or that young girl 12th grade who wants to go into nursing? As a nurse educator, what would they need to do to prepare themselves for a career in nursing?
Well, if you feel you want to go into the medical field, I applaud you, first of all. It is a very wonderful area to go into. Make sure you have the basics, the maths and the sciences. You can start at a 2-year program in order to get those things. If you did not do it in high school, there's always a way to get in. But don't let that discourage you. It's worth your effort. Certainly, yes, it is challenging. But if it's not a challenge, then it may not be that well done. You know, you need to put a little effort into it to get something out of it, to make it long lasting. So it wasn't easy, but it certainly has, for me, has been rewarding. It's allowed me to do a lot of things, go a lot of different places, and there's always a place you can work. But the wonderful thing about being in medicine is you don't always have to stay where you started, and I always love that flexibility. So I applaud you, whomever that is, whether male or female. If you want to go into nursing, there is a place for you. And there are challenges, there's opportunities to advance yourself, and those were some of the things that encouraged me to stay in nursing and to matriculate the system.
And obviously, it's not an only female program. I
Oh,
mean,
certainly.
I think 10% of nurses are males. Just that we see a lot more of the females on television and everything. So it's kind of, but if you're a young man, there is room. And nursing doesn't have to be, you can be you can start as a CNA, certified nurse assistant. You can become a LPN, licensed practice nurse, and you can go
Right.
into registered nurse practitioner. There's different cadres. And I think at the moment the pay is awesome. So if that's another incentive.
Oh yeah, the pay is good.
Yeah.
It's very rewarding. It's been great for me. It's allowed me to have a lifestyle that I wanted. You can be a travel nurse. You can be a nurse in the military. There's so many different avenues. And another great thing about nursing, again, is that there are many different areas to work in. You can do med-surg, you can do psychiatric nursing, pediatric nursing, geriatrics. It's open to so many different things that you can do.
So 30 years later, what's your fondest memory? You just told me you probably just, put in your letter of retirement a few weeks ago. Looking back, is it 30 years now?
It has been really 35 years, 31
35.
years as a nurse practitioner.
30,
31 years as a nurse practitioner,
35
35
as
years
a nurse.
as a nurse.
Wow.
Because I started as a
That
registered
is
nurse
awesome.
and then went back to school. So yes,
So what are your fondest memories of nursing?
my fondest memories of nursing, I love my nursing students. I enjoyed helping them learn about what it will take for them to be successful in the working area, how to be compassionate and caring with their patients, just all those different avenues the joy that I found in nursing, to instill that in them and to help them learn what it takes so that they could be successful once they got out there on their own. And then also encourage them as well to go further, not to stop where they started, but to continue to educate themselves.
So, in the midst of this resounding success story, your husband was an engineer, you were a nurse, you had two lovely children. Something happened. So, give us a little insight into that. What happened?
And I think you're talking about when I lost my husband. We were on my vacation of a lifetime. I'd been looking forward to it. We'd gone to the Bahamas, and my husband had an accident on a water slide, and he broke his pelvis, fractured his pelvis. We had to be transported back to where we were living in North Carolina, and he had surgery. And 2 days later, he had passed a pulmonary embolus, died there in the hospital. We were expecting to go home and start his recovery process, but it did not end that way.
And this was in
2017.
2017. Okay. Okay. So that was obviously your kids were out of high school. You were settling into, traveling, getting the, I guess I'll call it the empty nest of some sort. And then this happened. Now, if you look at the statistics, there's a lot of widows in our community. People know that men tend to live less years than women. In America, the average man lives about 77, 76. The average woman lives about 79, 78. So we know that women will live longer. Okay. What would you say in the last 5 years you've learned about widowhood that you didn't know before?
First of all, my children, my young people, I call them young people because they were young adults. They were both in college. And to know about widowhood before it all happened, I had no interest in. So it was not something that I actually knew about, although I knew some widows. But I learned a lot. I learned that, well, first of all, before I became a widow, I had a foundation, a strong foundation in Christ. I had a relationship with Him for a very long time.
Okay.
And so when my husband passed, one of the first things that came to my mind was the fact that I couldn't handle it. I knew I couldn't. And I also knew that I had two young adults that I was responsible for, so to speak, to get them through it. Because when there is a death as big and impactful that occurred to us, things can stop. Life can stop moving. And I did not want that. Did not want that for them. It was during the holidays. It was during Christmas time, one of the best times of the year for me. I love the holidays, and my family always traveled during the holidays. And I just believe in my heart that God would not do that to me, to take one of the most special times of the year away from me and my children, that He would not want us to be depressed during the holidays, because that's not what the holidays are for. And I had to remember, it's not about me, what happened to me. Death is not about anybody other than Christ, however it happens. Because if we think about it and take time, we should run to His arms, because He did it for us before we knew anything about death. So what I found out is that God comforts us through people. That I had family, I have friends, I've been a part of a church for a very long time, and wherever we moved, I always looked for a church that had supportive ministries within it. Ministries for children, for couples, ministry that they did in the community. So I was always a part of a church, and I became actively involved in small groups so that I knew someone and they knew me. I've always been a part of a large church, but large churches were made small to me by becoming integrally involved in what was going on.
So not isolate yourself.
I never isolated myself. It's when you're going through grief, you don't want to be isolated. But I did find out about Grief Share is what it's called, Grief Share. And we had that ministry at our church. I attend New Hope Church in Jackson, Mississippi. And that was a wonderful thing for me to do. Now, when my husband passed, he allowed me to have a peaceful time with my dear husband. And I say that because of the fact that I did not want his death to be something that was bad, a bad memory for me, something that I would not be able to get over. I wanted it to be a time of peace because I was there, and I wanted him to know that I was there. Although he was gone, I saw them do the CPR. It took about 35 to 40 minutes, but then he was gone. And I didn't want any bad memories of those last times we had together, because he was an excellent husband. I loved my dear husband, and I needed to know that he knew that I was there for him, and I could not have been there for him thinking about all the awful things that could come after him going.
So thanks for letting us know about GriefShare. I've never heard about it.
GriefShare.com
So
is
it's
can be
accessible to anybody?
it's accessible to anyone.
Okay.
You can find out about it, go online and find out where it is in the community, and you just sign up. And generally they're going just like the academic school year. They generally are not doing anything during the summer times. Churches slow down and they're doing different things during the summer. For instance, the Vacation Bible School and other activities. But I joined in, and anyone can join in. But that was most helpful for me. And I also did some private counseling. My daughter and I, my son decided not to, but we all stayed together. And I supported them and encouraged them like any mom would. I wanted them to know that we must live.
A lot of people don't want to talk about money when it comes to widowhood. They feel it's, embarrassing, it's touchy, it's sensitive, but did money come as was it an issue? Because I was reading the Bible in 1 Timothy 5, and Paul was actually very blunt about helping the widows. He said, let those who are true widows be supported by the church, and those who want to remarry under 60, let them remarry. He was kind of saying there are people who are, as a result of their widowhood, need financial support.
Right.
So we don't want to talk about it in the community. We think, oh, she'll be fine. But tell me about it. How did you handle raising 2 kids, college kids, hopefully, but obviously still had the financial pressures. But on your own, was there any change in your finances after he died? Did you have to change a few things around? Because we've heard stories, horror stories of, women losing homes, and let me use the word in-laws becoming possessive of property. We hear all those stories. I hope you didn't have to go through any of that.
Let's say that you want to, when you start well and end well. And what I mean by that is, my husband and I, we prepared for our lives. We prepared for our children. And we did those things with savings and those kinds of things that anybody would do as a plan for their retirement. And that's what we had done throughout our marriage. We talked about our finances, him more than me, but that we managed our finances so that rainy days or whatever came, that we would be prepared. We did the insurances and things that we were supposed to do. I know that all families don't do that, and some families do struggle after a death of a spouse, and it's very real and it's very painful, and yes, it does hurt, and there are needs that widows in particular, widows will need. I was going to say particularly females, but widowers as well, if they've not planned for what might come. So life insurance policies, term life insurance policies is a wonderful thing to do, but widows do need support. They need people to check in on them, to ask them, how are they doing, offer services if that's needed, in particular if they are older than 60. And it's not necessarily even if they're older than 60, they may be younger.
Right.
But if people know of resources that they can provide for them temporarily until they can get back on their feet, that is a good thing. The deacon in our church was very helpful, checking in on me, and there were some things that I didn't know about. I needed some assistance. Of course, being a homeowner, there are things that happen and you'll need support, and So he was very helpful with that. And so there was a time just until I could get on my feet and learn some things. And I watched my dear husband over the years, and I knew how to do some things. So I wasn't helpless, as they say. And I have brothers and my family, so I reached back.
Yeah, you
But
have 5 brothers.
yes,
So that's well, 4 now.
4 now.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of brothers. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I had men in my life. My dear husband and I had friends, so I
Okay.
reached back, and they reached for me, and so I accepted help. Now, some people can be very proud and not want to share and let people know they're struggling, but grief is not to be in a silo. It is not, and for others who are afraid to come forth and how are you doing, it's so needed just to come check in, and is there anything I can do out of sincerity, so that it is appreciated to have others to look in and remember that grief is hard. It can be lonely, but for the widow, as well as for those in the church that know about that widow, is real important for others just to kind of reach out in a gentle way, keep in touch. And you don't have to try and fill in. When you call, just call to say, I'm checking in on you. You don't have to have a complete conversation
So
at all.
you lived alone when this happened, after he passed?
I was an we were empty nesters.
Right.
Yes, yes.
So how did that happen? I mean, you lived in that big house by yourself.
Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a big house
small
or a
house,
little
right.
house. It does not matter. The thing is that you find yourself alone.
Okay.
And so those routine things, you're
Okay.
having someone to sit down and watch you drink coffee. My husband didn't drink coffee, so that's
Okay.
why I said that. But those small things that you did together, those things are now gone. You know, places you would go, you're on your own. You're alone. And so for me, and I have to talk in reference to myself, and I encourage the widows that you must remember that although you are alone, you are never alone.
Alone, right.
If you have a relationship, and I have a relationship with Christ all of my life, that he speaks to you through his word. And I was reminded of how sweet he can be in that I love Cokes. I call it my stiff drink.
Really?
Okay. You look at stiff drinks, that Coke has a certain amount of sugar in it, right?
Okay, the classic.
It's like
Okay.
43 grams, right? And I'm thinking, I'm drinking this. However, it's my stiff drink, my go-to.
Okay.
And the makers of Pepsi, they know that. They have that sugar in there to keep you coming.
Right.
God's word, he says his word is like honey, right? And it can be very sweet, but you have to take the time to read it and impart it and get to know him yourself.
Oh, wow.
Because he will draw you in, and he'll draw you in at times when you need him. And he'll carry you when you don't even realize what's going on. That's what he did for me.
Oh, wow.
So when you talk about being lonely, I had to remember, be careful with the words you
Right.
use, because the words you use can bring you up or it can bring you down. And so I chose to use words that give me life. And one thing I asked the Lord, I said, Father, I want to live. I want to live. I don't want to just live and exist. I want to live.
That's
I
right.
want to feel. I want to drink. I want to understand it when I do something that is a memorable experience. It's not just going through the motions. That my life did not end when my husband passed. We had a life. I was a very valuable person to that relationship. I remain valuable.
That's right.
My children, I look forward to things, and I call them children here, but I usually say young people. They have a life to look forward to. Life is about living. Even in death, there is life. And I believe God. I take him at his word plainly, just
Wow.
as he says, because in particular during this time, I need him. And I told him, I'm looking at you. Show me how to walk through this, because I cannot do it on my own. What you see, anybody sees, because of the result of the relationship I have with him. It's not about me at all, and I'm very careful to be reminded death is not about the person. Christ is drawing us back into him for whatever reason, however the death occurs, which can be very bad.
Right.
I realize that, but you have to keep things in perspective, and that's what I continually try to do, to keep my life in perspective.
You know, a lot of us read the scriptures that say that God or Jesus is the husband to the widow, and the father to the fatherless. But until you lose somebody, I lost my dad in 2020. That scripture doesn't jump at you, So you now understand what it means to Jesus to be your husband and for him to be your father, And that's what Miss Joyce Johnson has experienced in the last 5 years. Jesus has become her husband. Jesus has become the father to her children, and she's walked with him down that path. We're going to come back on the next show. I want to talk to Miss Johnson about some what people may consider sensitive subjects, remarriage. What are her thoughts on that? Raising children when a father or a loved one passes away. Does it change the dynamic? Do you have to make adjustments? Do the kids have to go through some reconstruction or reconfiguring? I think it's important that we understand how she has successfully done that with her 2 children. And then she's going to also tell us a few other things about her future and her focus on her faith and how God has brought her to where she is. So we're on faithandpower.online. We meet every last Friday of the month at the Clarion Inn Oyo Hotel on 165 Martin Luther King Drive. We're going to be meeting on March 25th. Don't miss it. It's an all-night prayer meeting, 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. March 25th with Reverend Barrister, she's a lawyer, Janet Floyd, at the Oyo Hotel. We're looking forward to seeing you. And then the next month, we're going to be ministering as well at the same location, April 21st, I believe, or April, with Pastor D. Sapp. So we're looking forward to seeing you at those programs. It's going to be awesome. Don't forget, go to faithandpower.online. You can write to us at P.O. Box 550, West Monroe, Louisiana. We're here. We can take your prayers at ritapraise1@gmail.com, or you can send your mails to us at P.O. Box 550, West Monroe 71294. Ms. Johnson and I are here to tell you that Jesus is Lord. There's nothing you've gone through that he cannot give you a total recovery. No matter how battered or scattered or shattered your life is, God can gather you again and put you right back together. Look forward to seeing you. Jesus is Lord. God bless you.